Hi guys, and welcome back to our Portuguese Quinta. We have been away for a few months, obviously back in the UK. We don't actually live here at the moment, so yeah, it's just back and forth a little bit at the minute, so bear with us. Some things have changed whilst we were away, so we'll give you an update on those. This video will focus on something that a lot of you have asked about, which is how difficult was the process of actually buying this property or land in Portugal in general. How long did it take, and so on. So if you're interested in those sort of things, stick around and we'll cover that in this video. The next couple of videos will be around the various little projects that we want to do whilst we're here, and we'll probably end up going out exploring as well. So you may want to watch those over the coming weeks as well. Now, the first thing though is we've got to go shopping. We've had a look around, we have a rough idea of what we need, so let's go. And we're back from the shop, Brico-Marché or something like that. Some of you who already live in Portugal will be familiar with the shop, I'm sure, even if I have mispronounced the name quite badly. It is quite late. It has taken longer than what we thought it might do. We are still a little bit used to everything being like 3 minutes away from your doorstep, whereas if you are living quite remote, or if you are remote like what we are here, yeah, it does take nearly an hour to get anywhere pretty much. So what I'm going to do is tonight I'm going to show you slash tell you the few things that have changed whilst we were away, and tomorrow we're going to go through the actual process of buying a property in Portugal. Well, tomorrow for you it's going to be in literally like 30 seconds, so bear with me. Right, first thing that has changed, we have got a flower meadow, quite a decent sized one. You may be able to see all that yellow, yeah, wildflowers. Not disappointed at all, really nice, really happy with it. However, in the middle of one of our wildflower meadows, there is something that we weren't expecting to see, so let me show you. Right, so the first thing is this barrel. Yeah, we have got a rusty barrel that's sprouted in the field. So, yeah, weird. If anybody's missing a rusty barrel, drop us a message and I'm sure we can reunite you. But yeah, weren't expecting that, but there you go. The second thing that has changed slash hasn't changed is some of you will remember this orange tree that we planted back in November. This is being filmed in sort of mid-March, and we were wondering whether it was going to survive, and it has survived, which is good news, but just about. Now, yeah, it's not looking too happy, which to be fair, we planted it just before winter essentially, so for winter, which isn't ideal time to plant it, but that's when we were here, so that's when we planted it. Now, looking at it now, it does have a ring of bare soil around it, so I'm wondering whether that's somehow linked to that mysterious barrel that appeared out of nowhere, because obviously, as you may remember, we do have a sheep farmer that grazes his sheep on this plot. So I don't know whether he maybe tried to protect the orange tree from the sheep, because the barrel doesn't have either ends. So it's a theory. What do you guys think? I'm afraid the last thing that has changed is not good. There's been a crime committed on the Quinta, and it's not great. Now the buildings, when we bought the property or when we left it back in November, didn't have any locks on the super secure, ventilated, not so reinforced wooden doors that are on the two buildings. And in this particular building, this what we will call a guest house, Joe left a tape measure on the blue bedside table that was strategically placed within the construction within the building, and that has gone missing. So yeah, tape measure stolen. But to be fair, yeah, we were half expecting something to go missing, so tape measure, no biggie. So what we're gonna do is, you'll see us over the next couple of days attempt to put some sort of locks on these doors. Let's face it, if somebody wants to get in, they'll just kick the door in, and it's not really going to be that difficult to get in, but it's just about making it a little bit more difficult than just push the door in and then walk in. So yeah, right, let's get on to the tips and the actual process of buying a property in Portugal. So if you've decided that you want to buy a property in Portugal, the first thing that you're going to want to do is go and have a look at what's available and decide on which property you might want to have a look at, go and view, and sort of take it from there. In the UK, what you would do, and I imagine it's going to be the same in a lot of other places, you go online, go on the websites of estate agents. In the UK, we've got a website called Rightmove, which basically collates properties from various estate agents, and then you basically, it's like an online catalogue, which makes it quite easy because you can scroll through properties from the comfort of your home and then only really go and view the ones that you like. In Portugal, in our experience at least, it's not quite the same. So what we initially did is exactly what I just described. We went online, had a look. Some of the properties sort of ticked some of our boxes and so on. We got in touch with the estate agents, and they pretty much ignored the properties that we said that we were interested in, and basically they use it more as a first point of contact to get you into the office, and that's the place where you will actually go and see what's available, what they have for sale, and there's a lot more that they will show you there than what you will see online. Okay, some of the properties that you see online have actually sold, but are still being advertised online. That's not unique to Portugal, but it's just one of the things that's happening here. So what I would recommend, if you do want to go through the route of buying through an estate agent, then what you will be best doing is find a reputable estate agent, or ask people online, social media and so on. I'll stick some info in the description. I might even write a blog with some more details, like contact details and who to speak to and so on, and actually go and see people, and they will show you exactly what they've got available, and then choose from that. In our case, we went to Remax, which is a massive estate agent here in Portugal. I think they've got properties for sale across the globe, really. We were basically in the morning, we had a meeting with the estate agents, where they showed us, based on the criteria that we've given them, they've basically given us printouts of various properties that they think might be of interest to us, and from those we narrowed it down to properties that we liked, and then if you didn't like a property, then it would basically go on the reject pile. If they thought that you do need to see it because it's a good property, they will tell you that. Okay, so we narrowed it down to a few properties, and then throughout the day you basically go out on this road trip across Portugal with a guide, essentially, from the estate agents, and they show you the properties that they've got for sale, the ones that you selected, and you go and actually see them. And you spend the day basically doing that until, I don't know, 4, half 4, and then you finish for the day, and then you might have another meeting with them in the morning to actually tell them what you thought. In our case, we basically did that for about 3 days, but ironically, this place that we ended up buying was property number 1 on the list, so we could have saved ourselves a bit of searching, a bit of time, but you never know. It's always best to go and view more properties so that you have a better idea of what's available, rather than just settle on one that sort of ticks your boxes, but you know, you never know. There might be a better one out there. Now, if you don't want to go through the estate agents, or if you have more time, because going through the estate agents definitely does save you a lot of time, but if you want to save a bit of money and you have more time, then the thing that I've seen mentioned quite extensively really is going into local cafes in the areas that you're interested in, that you like, and ask there whether anybody's got any properties for sale. Ask the bar staff, ask the people that run the cafes, and very often they will have contacts to people that have land or buildings or houses for sale, and then you might be able to buy direct, obviously cutting out an estate agent. Now, estate agent fees are in the thousands, so you're not talking about saving a couple of €100, you're talking about saving thousands. I think obviously it will probably depend on the estate agent and so on, but you're probably looking at about 5,000–6,000 euros for a property in terms of their commission. So obviously if you can go around the estate agents and not deal with them, then you could potentially save some money there. But like I said, it will take you quite a bit more time finding a property through individual people rather than going to an estate agent, purely because you're doing a lot more searching yourself and not just going into an office somewhere where somebody's lined up, you know, 300 different properties that might or might not be of interest to you. So something to consider. Now, a word of warning or advice I would give you at this point is a good estate agent will not lie to you, but they are there to sell you a property. So if you go to a place and you know there's not a building there, you're thinking maybe of buying building your own house, or you're looking at perhaps renovating a ruin or something like that, just because they say that you can get planning permission, you can do this, you can get an extension, you can do that, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be an easy process, okay? Or that you will get the approval in the end. Sorry about the wind noise. So just try not to look at everything through rose-tinted glasses, and definitely do your own research about the specific type of property that you're looking to get and the project that you're looking to undertake, if that's what you want to do. Because you know, if the chance of you getting a planning permission for a 5-bedroom mansion with a swimming pool in the middle of a national park is there, it might be a 5% chance, but the chance is there. That doesn't mean that it's not possible, it just means that there's going to be a lot of hoops for you to jump through before you get to do what you want to do. So just do your research on your particular type of property. In our case, we were looking for a property with a stone building, and I wanted to make sure that it had a roof on it, because from what I've read, from the research that I've done, I know that it's a lot easier to move on to and live on a property that has a building with a roof on it, as opposed to one that's completely derelict, no roof, and so on. So just do your research. Now, if you're looking at an off-grid property, such as this for example, then you may be looking for something similar to what we've got. A decent plot of land, some trees, olive trees, fruit trees, and a building that you can then work on, a project basically. Now, you may have come across the concept that if a building was built before 1951, then you don't need a habitation license, or that you can get what's known as an exemption from a habitation license. Now that is correct, and I understand from our solicitor that there are other exemptions that can also apply depending on where your property is and so on. So yeah, definitely check with a solicitor of your own of what rules might apply to your particular area. But you have to bear in mind that unless you have that exemption from the habitation license, you don't actually have the right to live on that property. So technically on this property right now, we could not just move in and legally, by the book, live here, because the buildings don't have a habitation license and they don't have an exemption from the habitation license. You could ask the seller to obtain the exemption from the habitation license for you, which obviously takes some of the risk off you. But when we asked about this sort of process, when we were buying this land, estate agents and our solicitor, we were basically advised that people don't really want to be doing that. It costs, to get the exemption, it costs about €1,000, and they just don't want to be bothering with the hassle of the paperwork, because it also takes a while, roughly about a year. We're just starting on that process ourselves here, so I can keep you updated on that as the time passes. But just make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, because if you think that you can just get a plot like this, move in, not do any paperwork, and just start building sheds and garages and houses and putting up yurts, parking caravans for years on end and so on, it legally speaking, you can't. Okay, so just make sure to do your research, because the rules do change, and they could be different depending on where you are looking to buy. So also seek legal advice if you can. Another thing to be aware of is the concept of shared ownership in Portugal. In the UK, it's, at least as far as I know, for example, it's a relatively new concept whereby it mainly applies to new build properties, where you buy a house essentially, but you actually buy a percentage of that house, and you have a mortgage on that percentage. You then own that part of the property, but somebody else owns a percentage of that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's going to move into your house, but it does mean that when you want to sell it, it complicates things, and potentially, for example, as it is the case here in Portugal, as far as I know, could be wrong, somebody could essentially come and start utilizing some of your land, or use your well on your land. So you want to make sure, at least we wanted to make sure, that the property that we were buying did not have any kind of shared ownership on it. Now, when we spoke to Remax about it, they said that they don't sell those kind of properties themselves. They don't deal with them, which for us is better, because we didn't want something like that. But if you're going to be buying privately, for example, if you're going to be avoiding using an estate agent, then just make sure that you do all of your checks, and that your solicitor does all the checks. So the next step, let's say you've chosen your property, you've made sure that it ticks all of your boxes, that there are no obvious issues with it, legal or otherwise. You will want to start the actual buying process. Now, I can only tell you from experience what it's like to buy through an estate agent, because that's how we bought this place. But essentially you tell them, I want that one, can I have that one please? And you sign a contract. Okay, after you've signed the contract, you then will have to pay over a deposit. In our case, it was to the estate agent. Once you've paid the deposit, as it is the case with deposits in general, wind. Whoa, okay. Anyway, some more. Yep. Right. Once you've paid your deposit, I don't think you would get that money back. I don't think, legally speaking, that money's gone now, okay? So before you pay the money over, before you start signing paperwork, make sure that you are absolutely 100% sure that you want that plot of land, that you want that property, okay? Because once you've paid that deposit over, you're basically on the way, and you don't want to be caught out short, and you want to make sure that you've got all the finances in place. Everything's as it should be from your side. At that point, the solicitor will start doing their checks, make sure that there's no debt on the property, make sure that, to be honest with you, I don't know too much on what it is that they check, but they do their checks before the completion, okay? And from that point on, it's plain sailing. The actual buying process was easier in Portugal than it was for us in the UK, for example. We then waited a few weeks. The solicitor or the estate agent, or basically from the vendor's side of things, they're going to have to notify the neighbours of the property that you're buying that property is for sale, well, it's being sold. They will have to notify them of the price at which it's being sold, and at that point the neighbours of the property that you're buying will have the opportunity to basically buy it at that price before you do. And I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks that they have to basically make their mind up if they want to buy it at that price that you offered from the vendor. If they don't, which obviously in our case they didn't, then you pay the remaining balance over, and it's completed. Okay, it's nice and simple. In terms of the actual exchange of the deeds and so on, what will happen is, in our case, because we weren't sure if we were going to be able to come back to Portugal to sign the deeds, we gave our solicitor the power of attorney, which basically meant that she was able to sign the deeds on our behalf. But it does mean that, for example, if you're traveling from the US, you don't need to worry about having to come back for a specific date at potentially relatively short notice. So it just simplifies things. Your solicitor can do the signing for you. Do you need a Portuguese bank account? Well, in our case, we didn't. What happened was we transferred the remaining balance to our solicitor, and she then had a check which she then physically handed over to the sellers on the day when we exchanged the deeds. Okay, what you will have a need is a NIF number, which is, in the UK we have a national insurance number. It's something that basically identifies you as a person with the finance department in Portugal, with the government essentially. Now there are various ways in which you can get the NIF. You can do it yourself. If you Google how to get a NIF, there are various, there's advice, detailed advice, far more detailed than what I can give you on how to do it yourself out there online. But it does require you to be in Portugal. You probably do want to speak a bit of Portuguese or have a translator or somebody with you. Or alternatively, you can pay somebody else to do that for you. Now, before we came to view properties, before we started the whole process, I did look at some of those services. I believe for a NIF number they charge about 150 euros or something like that. Some of them will also help you with opening a bank account in Portugal, which, as I mentioned, you don't actually necessarily need. It probably depends on your solicitor, but you don't necessarily need a Portuguese bank account to buy a property in Portugal. But the NIF number you will need. Now, in our case, because we made our decision quite quickly that we want this property, we didn't have the NIF number ready and waiting. But the solicitor that dealt with the purchase for us, she organised the NIF numbers for us, and in our case it was 50 euros each. Okay, so 50 each as opposed to 150 each. So it probably does depend on your solicitor, but from what I understand online, if you know where you're going, if you speak Portuguese, well, wind again, it's a relatively straightforward process. So maybe not necessarily, don't jump the gun, don't go spending hundreds and hundreds, oh bloody wind. Right, as I was saying, maybe don't go out paying somebody to get stuff for you before you've actually narrowed down what property you want, because you may be able to get it all sorted a lot cheaper with the help of the estate agents, and the solicitor is going to be dealing with the purchase for you. For example, with the bank account, the estate agents themselves offered to help us to get the bank account, and that would have cost us nothing, whereas online we would have had to pay a few €100 for that. So just bear that in mind. So as I mentioned in the comments to some of the people in the last video where we sort of revealed the property, the process itself is fairly straightforward, but, and this is a big but, you do need to do your own research and do a lot of searching online in terms of what it is that you actually want, because you have to know what it is that you want to do with the land, what kind of land you want. Do you want it to have a proper house on it with a habitation license, or are you looking for an off-grid property like this, for example? Okay, because it will all make a difference. And do seek legal advice if you are looking to do a project, because like I said, because some things are sometimes possible, it does not mean that they're going to be easy, quick or cheap. Okay, so you don't want to buy a property that you cannot do what you want to do with it, and if you can, then it's going to cost you a fortune. Okay, especially with an off-grid property. You know, off-grid properties, people tend to be on a budget to a degree at least, and you know, if you buy a property like this and then you have to start spending thousands on architects and legal advice and solicitors to deal with the legal process and the red tape and the paperwork for you, you know, that may take the joy out of the whole project in itself, and it will also drag you down. Yeah, just be careful. That's all I'm saying. So I think I've covered most of it. Obviously you can't really go into too much detail in a video, otherwise I'd be here all day and you guys would be asleep if you're not asleep already anyway. So yeah, if you have any specific questions, drop them in the comments and I'll do what I can to sort of help you out and sort of give you an insight into our experience, because that's all I can do really. I'm not a Portuguese solicitor, so I can only tell you what we came across and what our experience is. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. See ya. Flippin' heck, this video is just gonna be way too long.